So we're going to move into some of the logistics of setting up your behavior screening for the Student Risk Screening Scale and the SRSS IE. So the first part is to talk about preparation and getting ready to conduct screening in your school for the first time. So the first thing is to have some things in place ahead of time. And as Kathleen has talked about these in previous sessions, we're just going to reiterate that you want to make sure that you have your tiered structure in place, a blueprint for those practices so that they're available for all of the stakeholders in your school. You want to make sure that you're thinking about the data that you have, including these new screening data for making decisions about moving kids into supports and moving them back out of those supports. You also want to make sure that you are checking with your state and local laws pertaining specifically to systematic screening for behavior, and making sure that if you're a school doing this for the first time alone, that you're talking to your districts about the policies that are in place. It's also very important to make sure there's a plan for communicating with your parent community about why you're doing behavior screening, the kinds of information that it's going to give you, and how they can be involved in this process. As well as the screening process, it's important to keep parents in the communication for any discussions for their child around the need for secondary or tertiary supports. So that communication piece on the front end before you install screening in your school is really critical. Then you think about the key players in your school in order to make this new practice successful. You definitely want to make sure that your administrators are on board, supportive, fully understand the process, and are the leads in this new effort for collecting screening data on behavior. You then want to have at least 2 people in your building who are going to lead this effort. So they're going to be the ones that are familiar with the content, with how to conduct screenings, with your technology, with communicating with your district or school technology specialist in terms of supporting the screening effort in your building. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you have somebody who is very familiar with the technology you're using. In most of the school districts that we work in, that's somebody at the district level at this point, but it is possible to have a school level person take care of those technology needs. They need to make sure they have access to all of the students in your building, information on them, as well as the student ID number so that they can prepare the screeners for each teacher ahead of time. And finally, you want to make sure that those point people, the 2 members of the leadership team and the technology specialist, are looking at things like making sure that all of the items are correct, that they're all there, and that when teachers log in, they can see all of the items. You want to make sure that they can see the anchors so they know how to rate each item. And you want to make sure that somebody does a final check that all the classes are pre-populated and that the correct students are in there. And if any errors are found, they should be brought to the attention of that technology specialist in the leadership team as soon as possible so they can be corrected. Also, when you're thinking about planning for screening, you're thinking about making sure that your screening time points are in your calendar at the very beginning of the year so that teachers can plan around them, can plan some extra time. You can plan at your faculty meetings to be able to allow teachers the time to do screenings all together as a group. They occur 3 times a year. In the fall, 4 to 6 weeks after the first of the year, in early December, and again about 4 to 6 weeks before the end of the year. You would refer to your assessment schedule. That would be part of your blueprint for your school, for your primary practices. That lists all of the data sources that you have in your building and the time points of when those will occur. Your faculty will have this already and access to it, and they'll be planning around this. So your screening windows on your calendar provide additional detail for their planning. Then you want to think about who is going to conduct the screenings. Sometimes high school and middle school teachers are concerned that they will be screening every student that they teach, and that is definitely cause for concern. Middle and high school teachers would screen 1 period of students, ideally at a time when every student is accounted for in a class in the building. At the elementary school, we often see homeroom teachers being the ones that are doing the screening for students. And you want to make a decision about whether to include your elective teachers and what time of the day you're going to screen. So for homeroom teachers at the elementary school, that's not an issue, but at a high school or a middle school, you want to know whether you're going to screen during an advisory period, whether you want to screen in the afternoon, right after lunch, or in the morning and first period. So those are decisions that you would make as a district and school leadership team. Critical to screening, as with any type of school data on students, is to make sure that you have secure methods in place for protecting this information. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you one structure for setting the screening up. And it's critical that each teacher have access to their own class of students, that the leadership team and administrators have access to the school level data, and that the district have access to all data within their district. But each teacher doesn't need access to other teachers' individual scorings. So when you're looking at your data as a school and sharing it with all of your teachers, you're sharing with them aggregated data, looking at the school as a whole, looking at individual grade levels, but not looking at individual student level data. Those should be protected as with other data. So you want to make sure you have those structures in place. Again, we've mentioned this before, but you would never email these data because email is not a secure method for sharing information. Then for preparing to conduct the screening, your district level technology person and your district leadership contacts would check for the following. They open up the file, they're going to make sure that the teacher's name is in the file, as well as the date that the screening will be conducted. Because you'll be doing 3 time points, the date is an important piece. You want to make sure that all the items are correct and that all the students are listed with both their identification number and their name. Just as a caution, we want to make sure that you understand that you can't change any of the items on the scale. So while you may not like the item for steel and you may think that bullying is something that you're more concerned about at your school, this measure is studied and psychometrically sound as it's designed, and it cannot be changed. So all of the items stand, all of the items should be completed for every student, and you want to make sure that you're using the scale of 0 to 3, just as it is in this example. So in this next part, we just encourage you to take a pause and consider questions that you have about preparing your school or your district for screening. Talk about or think about what resources you might have in terms of your technology support and how you might set up a structure to make sure that these data are secure at your school and district.